one of the key points, kind of a specific thing that I would like to, actually two specific details I'd like to lay out and describe is
Well, go
something that
ahead
I've
and do it.
recalled
This is
from,
your chance, Troy, to get out anything
okay,
you feel you need to share. You got like 28 minutes. I want you to share it to all of my listeners.
okay. So I'll start with the one that happened first, a very specific thing that was kind of related to this pyramid. And it was one night by the fire, I think in November, early November. I was sitting by my fireplace with a warm fire, and I just got a feeling that one of the gray elders that is here that I've had at least telepathic and astral contact with wanted to communicate. So I tuned in and just to see what he wanted to tell me or talk to me about. And it wasn't completely vivid, but I guess you could call it a kind of visionary astral body or out of body experience, perhaps. So in this meditative state, I connected with this elder. His name is Mutu, and it started at the pyramid, but it wasn't about the pyramid or Mount Adams. He actually wanted to show me Mount Baker, which, for those listeners who may not know, Mount Baker is a historically volcanic mountain in northwestern Washington, I think north of Bellingham, around that area. So he showed me this vision of Mount Baker, and even Mount Baker is still active or considered potentially active right now, and there is a possibility that it could erupt. There's still seismic activity around there anyway. And he showed me this vision of Mount Baker, and I don't want to scare anyone, but the vision was of Mount Baker erupting, and a big black plume of ashes coming out of it. And similar to how the smoke from the Canadian fires earlier in the summer of 2018 and throughout even the early fall of 2018 at least was polluting the air of Washington. At least that was one of the major causes, along with their own fires. That air was being blown south from Canada to Washington. And a similar thing would happen if Mount Baker erupts. If what he showed me could come to pass, then a large cloud of ash could be blown over a lot of western Washington and maybe even the Cascades and some of eastern Washington. That's the message I got. Now, from that, I was also told that that's a potential that could happen within a number of months. Now, that doesn't have to happen if people do clean up their act and think more positively about our future, think more positively about the state of affairs, and not only think positively, but come together in groups, communities, do what people can physically to take care of the earth, but also energetically, such as with focused meditations for world peace and healing and sending intentions to the planet, positive intentions, which can affect the Earth's magnetic field, especially in groups, in large groups.
I think
that is something I've wanted to get out.
I think that has a lot of meaning to it because my friend, when he was doing his show back in the 90s, he did an experiment where, he asked his audience there was a major storm coming and he wanted to divert it. And, that was one of the things he had everybody that would do it meditate that the storm would not appear and happen the way it was supposed to happen. And it didn't happen. But then after he thought about it, he got scared because then he started realizing people could use their meditation and try changing things, which actually could make things actually more intense or worse. But I think people need to focus more on love and meditate about that and meditate about peace and healing of our planet. Because right now, as you know, this planet is dying. We're killing it. And we're killing it fast at this point. You can't suck the blood out of it and expect this like a human, right? You can only donate so much blood and then you can't donate anymore because you're dead.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree with you, Gary. And that is essentially the messages that I've been getting from this gray elder and others, that it's our consciousness, our collective consciousness especially, that is sickening the earth. And we're seeing a lot of that in physical earth changes, not just a recent uptick in volcanic and seismic activity around the world, but this new apparent phenomena of giant cracks appearing on the earth, and even sidewalks and roads just developing cracks for no apparent reason, with large booms. There's no earthquakes when these things happen, at least no recorded earthquakes. It's just that these things appear. I'm sure there's a lot more that can be done and that contributes to this, but consciousness is very important, along with our physical habits. Another issue that I can talk about quickly is plastic in the ocean that I've been aware of for a few years, and I think that's one of the single biggest problems that is polluting the earth right now, is corporate pollution of the earth and oceans, and also wasteful consumerism, that people use too much plastic, especially single-use plastic, and then dump it in the ocean, or even litter, and then it ends up in the ocean being washed away by streams or ending up in streams, and weather systems eventually migrate plastic to the oceans.
Well, a lot of people don't even realize, Troy, in the ocean, there's a dead zone in the ocean where all this garbage and debris, we're talking miles of it, that is, you see pop bottles, you see milk, bottles, you see garbage, just, kind of like all grouped in this great big, huge, miles of this garbage that floating in the ocean, and we're killing the ocean. And then with some of these whales that washed ashore, when they, open them up, because they want to know what killed them, and then they find that the whole inside of the whale, the whole stomach and all the intestines and all that stuff is filled with plastic.
Yeah, that is a terrible tragedy, and not just whales, but of course dolphins. Over 90% of seabirds will ingest plastic in their lifetime, and a lot are being found with large amounts of plastic that kill them. Sea turtles, all kinds of fish. It's just a huge problem that is possibly endangering many species, and not only ocean and marine species, but microplastics are also getting into our food, which is a problem.
Well, not just that, but the meltdown in Japan, years ago, and it's years now because it's more than 2 years, of the nuclear reactors that melted down. Now, they're finding radiation in sea life, not just around Japan, even here off of the coast of California, Oregon, and Washington, British Columbia, all that stuff. The fish are getting highly radioactive. And now Japan has been, I don't know when they're doing it, but they're talking about they have billions of gallons of this water. It's contaminated with radiation, heavy radiation. They just want to dump it in the ocean. And what's that going to do? Now, these grays that are telling you this, can you just, do you see what they, in your mind, what they look like? Or do you remember when you were under hypnosis? What do they look like? How big are they? I mean, what color are they? What texture are they? Can you describe anything about them?
I can see and describe some things. Even since April of 2018, when I had my first clear telepathic contact with the elder Mutu. He's truly an elder of his species, which I don't know his precise age, but I feel that it's around the equivalent of 2,000 Earth years in one body. I do see him. I've seen his face fairly clearly, I think, and kind of medium gray colored skin, of course hairless. I get the sense that him and his people have 3 long main fingers and kind of a thumb sort of thing, but that's not so much, the thumb isn't so much important, but they have 3 long fingers, so kind of 4 on each hand total, but the 3 are the dominant fingers. Some of their technology is based off of measurements of 3 and 6, such as triangles and hexagons that a lot of people describe, which I have also seen on the satellite craft off planet that I've been on. The grays that I remember, I do believe I've only met them in an astral state, but I don't know otherwise. So
now,
what I do remember is that they're short.
Now, do they physically talk to you, or are they talking to you, to your brain? I mean, without moving their mouth. Do they even have a mouth or anything like that?
They kind of do. It's very small, but as far as I recall, they don't move it at all. It's just all telepathic conversation, and not just words, but a lot of their conversation is also ideas and whole concepts basically being downloaded into my awareness, which can take some time for me to slow down and focus on it. But I've gotten some downloads from them, and also mantis beings are involved in this.
Now, are they friendly towards mankind, or see? I've had reports on them where they were not the friendliest towards human beings. What type of feeling are you getting from them?
The only feelings I've gotten from them are of pure love and compassion and kindness. At least the ones that I've dealt with. The 2 that I've dealt with. One is a little bit smaller than the other. I would describe them as 7 to 9 feet tall, but very loving beings. And they're not just mantis beings. I also experience them and have come to know them as light beings and as the spirits themselves, which are just difficult to describe, like giant orbs of light. And I've heard that they also manifest as red orbs of light that can dart around quickly, that some people have experienced and reported. but the ones that I know of and have had contact with, even the smaller one, which I